You don't need me to tell you that humanity is in a deep crisis. Everyone can feel it. We know a tectonic struggle is now taking place between the forces of freedom and those who love darkness, bondage, and enslavement. Yes, my friends, evil is rising. But take heart, for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction.
Love is here. My name's Churchill Clark, and I'm ready to join the Infowar. Right outside of Aspen in Conundrum Hot Springs, a small herd of cows lost their way. This story is very unusual. You have a group of cows, at least 6, but they're not sure how many exactly. For some reason, they couldn't count the cows in the cabin. But these cows wandered into a Forest Service cabin in the middle of the winter this year, and they got stuck in there and they starved to death. And so you have all these cows solid frozen in an old cabin in the middle of the woods. And the Forest Service is trying to figure out how to deal with this. And because of environmental hazards, they say, they don't want to pollute the hot springs below. They don't want to contaminate the water somehow, and they feel the only way to deal with this is blow up the cabin with the cows in it. Blow it up, burn it down, and that's how they'll deal with it. They're talking about lifting the fire ban up there, possibly in order to do this. And they're frozen solid, so you can actually cut these cows up in the cabin and then transport them. And as far as we know, it's perfectly good meat too, which would be silly to blow up and burn for no apparent reason and burn down the cabin. Now they say the cabin was going to be raised anyway. That, in my eyes, is a moot point. The thing is here, you have all this meat and in all honesty, one chainsaw would take care of dividing the cows up and getting them into smaller packages so you can move them. Now, if the snow is seriously that deep, you could certainly take a snowmobile with a sled and lift the ban on motorized vehicles for a minute. That would be pretty easy to do. And if the snow's that deep, you're not going to tear up the wilderness with a snowmobile. You go up there with a sled, you take a chainsaw to the cows, you pack the sled, you pull it on out of there, and you deliver that meat to a homeless shelter, perhaps. I mean, you can feed people. We pay farmers all the time not to grow crops. And people still buy into this illusion that we can't feed the world, that we have too many people on the planet. I had a friend of mine get into this argument with me yesterday. And he doesn't understand. Of course, he listens to mainstream media. That's all he listens to. I say, go to the United Nations website, their own website. I will pull it up for you. I copy these documents and look at them. And it takes me a while because I'm legally blind. But I do it, and I find out what their agenda is. And it's all in black and white, okay? The decreasing the world population is part of the United Nations Agenda 21. It's a big part of it. And they're hitting us on all sides. And boy, I'm rambling, I'm slipping into other things. I mean, this thing with the cows is just absurd. And I looked it up, and there it is. You know, they want to blow up these cows in the cabin. And I mean, you know, idiots, absolute idiots. And there was somebody from the Colorado Wildlife Service, the Colorado Wildlife Society, and yeah, they didn't want to disrupt Mother Nature out there. Again, Mother Nature and the birds and the flora and the fauna have more rights than human beings. And you know, I mean, in all honesty, I mean, how can you even think about blowing up this cabin? I mean, you know, lifting a fire ban, you know, and using explosives in a wooded area that's very dry, you know, even though they say there's too much snow to get horses in there, there's a mixed message there too. This is the kind of idiots that run our government, okay? I mean, we've got good people in the Forest Service, don't get me wrong, okay? I've met them, okay? My name's Churchill Clark. I'm the great-great-great-great-grandson of William Clark from Lewis and Clark, and I actually traveled the trail for 2.5 years during the bicentennial from St. Louis here to the ocean and back to honor William. And during that process, I ran into a lot of Forest Service, BLM, Corps Engineers, Park Service, sheriffs, different rangers, you name it, I ran into them. And I'll tell you, I met great guys left and right that were there for the right reason. However, there were quite a few that were idiots. And that's the best term I can come up with. And I don't try to look down on people, okay? That's something I just don't do. I don't label people. And it took me a long time not to do that because I was indoctrinated just like you. But this is how you're taught, you know, from when you're little. I mean, the TV is our education, and what passes for education nowadays, you might as well watch TV and get it all there because the schools are falling apart and people. I mean, competition's not going to be there anymore. You know, there are no losers. Everybody's going to graduate and everybody's going to go on to college, you know, and get in more debt. And then, of course, the jobs won't be there for them to help pay off the debt later on. And the debt's going to be absurd, and the money system's crumbling by design. The New World Order is fierce, and they're fighting you on so many levels. And I'm rambling. I keep doing this. And Alex, you do it too. And I feel your pain, man. I'm going to try and just go ahead and get into some clips that I've done already and some interviews I did here in St. Louis. And we can get into that right now. Churchill Clark here for Infowars Nightly News. I'm here at the famous Gateway Arch in St. Louis. And we've been having some curious weather lately. And I thought it would be a fine time to talk to people about geoengineering, or chemtrails. We're going to see what's happening here in St. Louis. Have you ever heard of geoengineering?
I've heard of geoengineering, I just don't know a lot about it.
Okay, have you heard of chemtrails before?
Heard of it.
Yes, well this is what it's about, and it's actually manipulating, the science of manipulating the weather.
Right.
And what climatologists have already agreed and admitted to is that they're spraying aluminum dioxide, barium, sulfur dioxide, and different metal particulates in particular into the atmosphere. And the claim is to combat global warming, to reflect the sunlight. Do you think that would be a good idea?
I don't think so.
Yeah, why not?
I don't know, just because a lot of it's our job to actually be tampering with the weather, you know. I mean, it'll happen, it's nature. Let nature run its course.
Could there be harmful effects from aluminum raining down on us?
Yeah, maybe.
No.
I mean, just the thought of it does not sound good. So, yeah.
But one thing they've admitted to is that they can make it rain harder in one area or make it rain less.
Yeah.
But when they do that, the opposite effect goes somewhere else. So it's kind of yin and yang. So if they make it rain harder in one place or snow like in the mountain resorts, which they've been doing since the 70s, they dry it up somewhere else and create drought. So
Interesting.
yeah, isn't it? Have you ever heard of geoengineering before? How about chemtrails? Alrighty. Have you ever heard of geoengineering? Have you heard of chemtrails before? Okay.